What's up, guys? It's your boys Wokey back out with more of the Chris Watts Chris Watts videos of the house. But now we're going into the Miller's location, because now we have been given a complete green light, 100%, that yesterday of 4/26/24 that the husband has been found guilty of domestic violence and child abuse. Which leaves me to believe, very scary, that there is something in that Watts house. It's not the women. It's not Shanann, Bella, Celeste, or Nico. It is something dark. But to help me with that, we're going to be watching Plunder, a great YouTube channel. This lady knows her stuff. She knows where to find it. And we are going to watch, because you guys have been blasting my messenger with this video. So with that being said, grab a chair, get comfortable. Also, before we go any further, make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel by hitting that wiper icon down at the bottom right. Hit that bell icon next to it so I do post videos like this one, because we'll get that little ring notification that I posted that video. Then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, thank you guys so very much for that continued love and support that you guys show on this channel every single day. I can't thank you guys enough. Keep doing what you guys are doing, and we'll continue to keep growing. And then, like I said before, make sure you guys go over to Plunder. Link is in the description down below. Go over there to her channel, subscribe, comment, like, and share. You know the deal. Watch her old stuff, watch her new stuff. Again, this woman definitely is dedicated to finding the truth, and I definitely am very intrigued as well. So with that being said, let's get the video.
Okay, I could not wait to tell you guys about what I watched today. I watched it on the Colorado Judicial Branch Court website, Weld County Division 9. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. The husband, the man who moved into the home of Chris and Shanann Watts, that house of horrors on Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado. That same home where Chris did away with his beautiful wife, Shanann Watts, attempted to do away with his children, and ended up getting rid of them at a well site, Survey 319, on August 13th, 2018. A day that will live in infamy. Yeah, that same house where I will only call them the Millers. You know, it's public record, but I'm just going to call them the Millers, so they can keep some semblance of their privacy, even though this court case is very public. I'm not going to say his full name. That husband, Mr. Miller, as I'll call him, I just watched him plead guilty to harassment as an act of domestic violence. Today is Friday, April 26th, 2024. Abuse. In the 2 weeks that I published that previous video where the house of Chris and Shanann Watts went up for sale, it used to be a bit more. The price initially was $775,000. It's been cut by $25,000. It's still on sale for $750,000. Now, the wife who moved into that house, Mrs. Miller, I just listened to her. She was on WebEx. Mr. Miller was actually in the courtroom, standing next to his lawyer, pleading guilty to what I've heard rumblings of, harassment and domestic violence. Mrs. Miller, she was on the phone, she was on WebEx, so I heard her audibly. You can't make this up, man. The man who moved into that infamous home of Chris and Shanann Watts appeared in the Colorado Judicial Branch in Weld County Division 9. I've been waiting and watching.
Do you think this is a coincidence, or do you think there's something tied with this? Is there a dark presence that caused him to do this? I have no idea.
Ever since I published that previous video a couple of weeks ago letting you know the house was for sale, I thought, oh, the Millers, they look like a great family. Their realtor had posted photos of them, and they have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, just like Chris Watts would have had with Shanann had he not done away with his pregnant wife and his 2 beautiful girls, Bella and Celeste. But I'm still surprised by this eerie irony of how things are turning out. You know, it's like a movie. And we once again, based on if God says yes, we might end up seeing the body cam footage of Mr. Miller's arrest, and we might end up seeing the inside of that home once again. So today, Mr. Miller appeared before Weld County Judge Dana Nichols. She sounds like a great judge. Only 17 months later, the Millers are selling the house. I thought, oh, you know, it seemed like they plan on being in there for a long time. Are they just flipping it?
I thought they were going to be in there until they were old too, but...
Are they just flipping a home for a profit? Is it a move for a job?
That's what we thought.
Or what have you? No, it turns out it is worse. In my deep research, I've discovered why they're selling it. There were rumblings potentially of a divorce. I have not confirmed with.
That's why I didn't say anything, because I didn't know what was what. Again, we don't know what the harassment and the domestic violence is towards. Is it towards the wife? We don't know of a divorce yet. I don't want to put out information that's not true. That's why I didn't say anything until now that we have the date, we have the evidence that the husband was found guilty for this domestic violence and harassment.
The court yet a divorce. I haven't found that paperwork, but I did find the fact that Mr. Miller was scheduled today to appear in court. He did appear. I thought it was yesterday. I kept checking and I'm like, oh no, it's Friday, April 26th. He appeared in court today, and his charges involved domestic violence on the part of Mr. Miller, which he just pled guilty to today. I watched it myself. I took copious notes. I wanted to see this hearing for myself. You know, I heard all the rumblings. I didn't want to rely on gossip or innuendo. So I have placed a link to the court's website below. However, I can't show you his court appearance. Too bad. Too bad. This court does not allow you to record the video. I can't bring you the video. I can't even bring you the audio. As you'll see on that court website, they have broad language. Warning, do not record or reproduce the court proceedings. Any recording of these proceedings, including any audio recording, visual recording, screen capture, not even a screenshot, or photograph without the express written authorization of the court is prohibited and may subject you to contempt proceedings, including a fine, jail, or both. For more info, please see Chief Justice Directive 2303 and CRS Section 13.1.132. Woo. So that's why I'm not bringing you any proof of what I just watched today. You'll have to trust me. For yourself. I would love to show you. I wish I could have brought you the video or anything. But Mr. Miller, he had on like a black and white checkered shirt, and he stood there right next to his attorney at the podium. And the lawyer was explaining how they filed plea paperwork that contemplates an 18-month deferred sentence. I guess whatever Mr. Miller did would have gotten him 18 months in jail. It looks like level 1 misdemeanors in Colorado can get you up to 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine. I don't know his date of arrest yet.
But the possible misdemeanors and the possible felonies that Nicole Kessinger could have occurred for deleting of messages, lying to interrogators and FBI agents, got her nothing.
I don't know if he spent any time in jail, and I don't exactly know which ones were his victims. You will see later on when I read you what happened in court today. The judge did talk about a charge against Mr. Miller involving the child being dropped.
Kidding me? Charge was dropped, not the child.
So the rumblings had stated that Mrs. Miller was divorcing Mr. Miller because he abused a child, one of their children. And I could not believe it. I was blown away. Now those are just rumors, allegations. Okay. What we have in court today is what is firm, is what I witnessed. And it's all about substance abuse and domestic violence because he has to go through treatment. More on that in a bit. First, I want to read you the 12-point rant. You may remember Mrs. Miller posted on Facebook in response to the controversy of the Millers buying the Watts home. I did remember that. Okay, so Shanann and Chris Watts lived in this beautiful home. They had it built. It's huge. It's on Saratoga Trail. It's in Frederick, Colorado. We've seen plenty of body cam footage taking place in that home because of Chris Watts' heinous, horrible actions against his family. It took a while for the home to sell. The crime happened, like I said, August 13th. It was a Monday, 2018. So it took a long time. It took 4 years until November 2022 for that house to be sold. The Millers purchased it for $600,000 in 2022. Less than around 17 months later now, it's already being sold. Mrs. Miller is talking about the house being for sale in court today. But first, we found out about the Millers because their realtor proudly posted a photo. They, post for photos. It was posted publicly in the public venue on Facebook. Of course, people save the photos. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Miller in the kitchen with their 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. The realtor confirmed, yes, for those of you who have wondered, this is the Watts' home. The Millers are moving into it. They're hoping to fill it with love and all this stuff. Well, she ended up deleting that post because, you know, there was a lot of backlash. There's always going to be backlash, whatever you do.
Yeah.
People are going to have a problem with it. The realtor had posted that photo, and then people started criticizing Mrs. Miller especially. Perhaps the whole family, but especially Mrs. Miller, claiming, oh, she's trying to be just like Shanann. She has 2 girls and a boy like Shanann would have had. They're posing in the kitchen. She's wearing similar clothes like Shanann would have worn, blah, blah, blah. After that controversy came out, Mrs. Miller posted on Facebook her 12-point rant. I want to read it to you just so when we talk about the eerie, ironic way that her husband showed up in court as a result of all this domestic violence and harassment, this is going to be the basis for us to talk about what the heck is going on with that house. And is it truly an evil spirit in there that's making the husbands turn against their families? Like, what the heck?
I would tell him that. It's like, you know, once you guys, all your paperwork's finalized and you guys have decided to separate and you're in your own spot with your kids, I was like, I think the days that you're with your kids, you need to be with them like full time. You know, I'm not ready to meet your children. He didn't even ask me to meet his children. I mean, not yet, you know, but I told him, I was like, in the future, eventually, if we get to that point where we think we're ready, yes, but I'm not ready to meet your kids. They're not ready to meet me. You're not ready to have me meet them. And I would just tell him, you know, like, I think we should take our time. Like, ideally, I would only like hang out with you like 2 weeks, you know, on the days that you don't have me. And I was like, in the rest of those days, I was like, spend time with yourself, man. I was like, you've been in a relationship for a really long time. Like, just spend time, like, doing whatever it is that you do that makes you happy, you know? And really try to, like, take a responsible approach to getting in a relationship with someone. Like, that is what I did. Those are his kids, and from the impression that I get, he's a great dad. I mean, he's all about them. He loves his little girls, and so, you know, for me, I could tell when I could hear it in his voice that he sounded concerned. It was just like those little girls, I'm sure, you know, and I think he's just worried about the whole situation. Like, I don't know what else to do, or I don't know what to do.
And then since on Monday. Have you spoke to him on the phone? Or has it just been text messages or both?
I think, I did not talk to him on the phone Tuesday. That was yesterday.
I'm sorry, you did or you didn't?
No. We texted each other yesterday, but there was no, like, phone conversation yesterday.
Okay. But Monday was on the phone?
Yeah, at night, like at the end of the night, I talked to him. I just remember being like really tired and I wanted to go to bed, but I was just like...
Which I don't know why they were doing this interview where they did it.
You had dinner. Was there anything else? Any other discussion about anything?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Did you talk about anything about his relationship with his wife?
I'm guessing this is leading up to something
with
the
Millers. I'm trying
Millers.
to, like, find a new spot, so I'm sure we talked about, like, hey, because I know we were trying to set up a time this week to go, like, have him. He was looking for a 2-bedroom apartment. He wanted to get an apartment that was for him and his girls. And so sometimes, I mean, we talk about that recently because he's just like, I gotta find a place. And we were supposed to go look at some stuff this week. We were trying to get it set up before all this happened. So, I mean, like, a little bit of stuff, but it's never, like, directly him and his wife. It's typically, like, this is what's going on, and it's just like, well, I will give you a helping hand if you're trying to find a spot. Like, I'll look at apartments for you guys. And
she was so into their finances in the house, and it's like,
did Nicole Kessinger put something in that house? I mean, I know these are all strange, supernatural things to talk about, but let's talk about them. So this was Mrs. Miller's rant. Number 1, she said, we have 2 girls and 1 boy, just like Shanann did, and we did not have control of the birth order. We did not know Shanann before we had babies, and millions of other families have 2 girls and a boy in that order. So she's saying, look, I couldn't help the order in which I had my children. The fact that I have 2 older girls and a younger boy, just like Shanann would have. She said, please stop calling us creepy and eerie for something completely out of our control. Our children's birth order had 0 to do with the decision to purchase this home. Number 2, Mrs. Miller said, it's being said that I look like Shanann, dress like Shanann, and I'm trying to be her. And that
like
the decision to buy this house is because I'm obsessed with her. Like
doubt
most
that.
of you criticizing me and making such ridiculous assumptions, I did not know her. Back then, Mrs. Miller wrote, and I believe this would have happened around November 2022, this post, right after the realtor posted their photos. So back then she wrote, I'm another 32-year-old white girl in a small town in Colorado. We all wear leggings and cute shirts and try to style our hair. I have dressed the way I do for years and still have the same clothes from 10 years ago. So that's nice. She can still fit into the clothes from when she was 22. And you know, part of me doesn't blame her for issuing this rant because, I don't know.
She's defending herself.
People always have something to say, something to criticize, but she's going to fight back and talk about loving the home, especially out of the lens I'm viewing it today. She fought so hard, you know, against the haters or whatever, to get into this home and just likely wanted to, you know, love her husband and raise her 3 children like many women do. And now for her to be going through this alleged breakup, the domestic violence, and whatever her husband may have done to their child or children, to the point where it got him in court today and a guilty plea being issued, I really feel sorry for her. It's probably so weird, and she's going to defend her husband in this rant when people started comparing him to Chris Watts. So she wrote, if I dress like her and look like her, so do most of the other moms I know at my age. Are they obsessed with her too? You saw a picture, me in one outfit, and decided I was trying to be like her. So she was ranting against, just because, you know,
just because of her clothes.
She was similar to Shanann, and of course standing in Shanann's kitchen, same number of children, bearded husband. It does not mean Mrs. Miller is obsessed with Shanann.
No.
Number 3. We are not the Miller family that Shanann was close to in North Carolina. He still lives out there, I live out here, and we have no prior associations with the Watts or the Rucheks. So Mrs. Miller had to clear up the fact that she was not related to Shanann. She didn't know Shanann.
She didn't know anything to do with
for those of you who remember this case, how much we were all obsessed with it and still are, apparently, because I've been following this house and the happenings. I expected them to just go on and live in life, bliss forever, raise their family there. We know there was a Chris Miller that Shanann Watts took photos with, and people were accusing her of being too close to him, and you hear all these accusations, unfounded. But that's what this Mrs. Miller is saying. Look, we're not those Millers. We didn't know the Watts or the Rucheks. She continued, number 4, I have not been working with her parents for years to buy this home. I have wanted this home for a long time. It is beautiful and perfect for our family. Maybe she's responding to the fact that the realtor had posted something like, you know, it was a long haul or a long road to hoe. These are my own words. But it took some doing, but the Millers finally got in this home. I don't know how long it took or what they had to go through, but people assumed, I guess, that Mrs. Miller from the onset, you know, almost like an ambulance chaser. Did she from the onset go after this house on Saratoga Trail right after the murders happened or something? Yeah, I don't think she was like looking at the house in 2018, so she's trying to make that clear. She wrote, I don't owe anyone a single explanation on why we bought it, but that's basically it, along with wanting to do the right thing by Shanann and her family. I do believe that we were meant to be here, and I'm so happy we are, despite how people have treated us for buying it. I absolutely believe Shanann would be happy about us buying her home and loving it rather than watching it deteriorate and having people fear this place she loved. It gets crazier and creepier to me.
I don't think I'm necessarily
Mrs. Miller wrote,
fearful of
it has, however, been a pleasure working with them through the process and taking this burden from them. So, you know, it was good that someone wanted to buy Shanann and Chris Watts' home, didn't necessarily care about the murders that happened there, or murder that happened there, as it were, and all the crime and stuff that happened in that home when Chris Watts did what he did to his beautiful family. And it would have been a burden to the Rucheks if no one had wanted to purchase it. You know, it went from Chris Watts to the Rucheks. Rightly so. They should have the home that Shanann wanted built, had built, designed, and took care of so lovingly. But it would have been a crime in a different way if the house would have just sat there and, you know, deteriorated, like she said, not been taken care of as Shanann would have wanted it to be. Number 5, she wrote, we did not buy this house because it's the Watts house. We have wanted it because it is perfect for our family and our lifestyle. It is beautiful and spacious in a lovely neighborhood, and we have every intention of making it a normal home again.
That's what Shanann
so that Shanann's parents
wanted.
no longer have to deal with this house. Indeed, you don't want to have to deal with a house across country. Shanann's, her parents, they already dealt with this huge loss of their daughter and their grandchildren, and then to have to deal with the practical matters of trying to take care of this home clear across the country from where they lived. Mrs. Miller said so the neighbors have normalcy, so that the community didn't have to be silent, dark home reminding them of what happened here. We will absolutely not be turning this into an Airbnb, a tourist attraction, or profiting in it in any way. Well,
that's why I'm afraid of whoever buys it next could do that. It just needs to be left alone. Like, okay, we know what happened in the house. The big focus that we need to like centralize on is NK's involvement, if she was there or not. The whole house, I definitely feel that it's, I wouldn't say beaten with a dead horse, but again, we can't state either that this is a coincidence or this happened because of what happened, what was in the house. I mean, a lot of people are going to speculate. I mean, it is scary to think about that this husband looked like he was a happy father too. Now we get the domestic violence and so forth.
I'm sure they'll draw a profit, and if someone else buys it from them and turns it into an Airbnb, maybe that's what's meant to happen. I don't know. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Lord knows what needs to happen with that home. Is that home cursed, is what I keep asking myself.
That might be.
And of course they will profit in a way, as they should, the Millers, if they, purchased it for $600,000, if they're able to sell it for, what, $750,000. Of course, there's other expenses that'll come from that. I don't know if capital gains tax kicks in or what'll all kick in, but there should be some type of profit, which is normal for anyone. When you're purchasing and selling a home, you want it to appreciate. Whether a crime happened there or not, that's just the normal desires of real estate. You purchase real estate for it to appreciate, not depreciate. She wrote, "That has never been a thought that has crossed our mind, and we are so happy that someone who may have had those intentions did not purchase this home." To me, it's not bad if some investment person buys this home off their hands and turns it into a Verbo, whatever they have to do. She wrote, "To have that even being said about us is sickening. I will also not be creating a TikTok documenting our lives here or finding ghosts. Insert eye roll here." I get that. Some people, I wonder if they were asking her to create TikToks, and you know how people leave crazy comments and they're probably like, walk around, show us videos, and she wasn't going to do that. I don't blame her. It sounds like she wanted to go on and live a private life in a way, even though she's living in an infamous home. We're going to talk about the request she made to the judge for her husband to be able to return to that home. But first, let's finish reading her rant. Number 6. Yes, we took a picture of our kids on the kitchen counter. Shanann had a similar one, in which I did not know about. Stop looking into every little thing and trying to put a negative spin on it. It was just a cute picture. Number 7. This is what tripped me out. My husband is not Chris Watts and will never hurt us. Woo. Now, as you'll see coming up, until I'm able to get body cam footage, if I'm even able to get it, and more details that should be on the way from Colorado, I won't know the exact affidavit details of the alleged crime and all that. But obviously it involved domestic violence, which means it's some kind of violence against someone who lived in the house, whether it was Mrs. Miller, one of their children, all of their children, either or. That's not clear, but what is clear is that this husband pleaded guilty to domestic violence and harassment today. She wrote, "Do you even hear how illogical and silly it sounds to say that my husband will hurt us, like Chris Watts did, because we're living in this house? To say there are evil spirits living here that possess my husband like they did Chris Watts is sickening. What a vile thought. There are no monsters here. Chris Watts made a decision as a human being. Hold him accountable instead of some imaginary monsters you can't even prove exist. You know who does exist? Chris Watts, and he is in prison where he belongs. Blame that sorry excuse of human garbage for what he did, and stop assuming my husband will do the same thing because he is living in this house. A house is made of drywall and carpet. You should be ashamed of yourselves for even thinking that, let alone having the audacity to type it out for the world to see. Please seek therapy immediately." Now that was a long rant about that. I believe, yeah, houses can be just drywall and carpet and whatever, but I believe we can't rush into things, and maybe the Millers didn't rush into things, and we could never say, oh, I would never do this, or my husband would never do that, as if we know everything.
Yeah.
Only God is omniscient. Only He is omnipotent. He knows everything. We don't know everything. And we can't assume a house is like, oh, it's just carpet and just walls. You want a good spirit to live in your home. We can't blithely just move into the home on Saratoga Trail without seeking God's will in Jesus' name with much prayer. I mean, anyone who purchases this home, you really have to have a clear word from God, in my opinion. Much prayer, because we really don't know what's in that home.
And you know what's coming when you buy it.
The impact any spirit, evil spirit may have had. I know some people don't believe in that at all. Some people are just like, a house is just a house, it's just a house. Sometimes it's deeper than that. The Bible mentions a lot of supernatural things, seeing beyond the veil. There's so much more going on besides just what we can see here. And it would behoove people to believe that and read the word. And there was one, remember that verse? And I think Chris Watts had even mentioned it. Perhaps, I kind of remember it being mentioned in this case where, and the demons are all cast out. One demon's cast out, and then 7 more demons return that are more wicked. I'm going to look it up because I want to get it right. So apparently it was Jesus speaking in Matthew 43. Now when the unclean spirit has gone out of a man, it roams through waterless, dry, arid places in search of rest, but it does not find it. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when it arrives, it finds the place unoccupied, swept, and put in order. And then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself. And they go in and make their home there. And the last condition of that man becomes worse than the first. So will it also be with this wicked generation. So I don't want to get the Bible wrong. I want to rightly divide the word of truth. Again. This sounds more like it's an unclean spirit in a man. So perhaps Mrs. Miller really is right. It's more about the spirit being in the man. And with Chris Watts gone, and hopefully the evil spirit is out of him. Hopefully he's really saved like he claims. Maybe he took the spirit with him. So maybe nothing really is in the house. But I feel like we can't just poo-poo the fact that a horrible crime took place there. Which might not be what she's doing, but you leave room to say, could there be a spirit in there that caused this to happen? Would this have happened if the Millers had moved into just another home in Colorado? Perhaps the answer is yes. Anyway, finishing her rant.
I'd like to bet too, like looking at his track record, he probably doesn't have any of this. He's never had any harassments or domestic violence. He's probably a wholesome man. And something happened. We don't know.
8. Rather than asking me anything, you are either asking other people questions or going off of internet rumors. Ask me. I'm right here. If you're close to me, you have my number. If you're not close to me, then you don't need to be asking other people those questions. Number 9. Many people are obsessed with us moving into this house because they are so obsessed with Shanann and her babies. You have to stop.
I never made a video about the Millers and them moving in because I wanted them to live a normal life. I only made a video about when it sold because it's the Watts house. But then people started contacting me about the Mr. Miller being in court the day that I made that last video about the house. I was like, no, there's no way.
There's absolutely no shame in seeking therapy, and I'm not being sarcastic here. So many people are making comments that never knew her, probably never even passed her in the grocery store, yet you are driving around taking pictures of this house and obsessing over family whose case was solved years ago. It is time to move on. We care deeply about what happens. We think of them. We think of their family and wish to keep Shanann's torch in this house by filling it with all the love it deserves. However, this is our home. We are not by any means trying to erase what happened to her, trying to involve ourselves in the case, or minimizing her death, but we are choosing to remember their lives. They are not defined by their deaths. That's really nice, she wrote that.
They
Remember
who they
were as people and why they identified with her so much. Had our hearts broken over them, and the light they brought to the world. What you focus on, the energy you bring to this case, into this house, that is how you will feel. If you feel disturbed or creeped out or anything negative about this house and living here, that is absolutely a you problem. Ooh, so part of me wonders, like, was Mr. Miller self-medicating? There's, substance abuse and alcohol
Well,
therapy.
a lot of us guys too, we keep it to ourselves. We don't bring things out. We don't, I wouldn't say self-medicating and so forth. For me, I try to step away from everything and clear my head by going on walks. I play video games. I look at old pictures from back and when. I don't do anything when it comes to taking over-the-counter medications that are prescribed. And, well, I do a couple when it comes to anxiety and depression. But, again, this family looked like it was very wholesome. But, again, like what she's saying, was he self-medicating? I just want to state that when a lot of men keep problems and issues to themselves. They don't want people to worry about them. They don't want people to talk to them about it because we just keep to ourselves.
Therapy he was offered in lieu of, like, in his plea deal here. Was he bothered by moving in the house? Was this the first time they had experienced anything like this? And if it is, that makes you wonder too. It just makes you wonder about the house. I mean, I was obsessed with this case, obviously. I was so obsessed, I was looking up, like, Saratoga Trail, and what does Saratoga mean? Is this buried on some Native American grounds? Like, what the heck is happening with this house? But she's saying how you feel about it, what you bring to this house is what you'll experience. What energy did she bring? Was she okay with moving in there and her husband kind of freaked out about it? I don't know. But she wrote, "We are happy we fell in love and light here. And I hope you can change your mindset at some point. The only monster that lived in this house stays away in a cell. It is not my responsibility to get you to see us living here in a positive light. That is something you actively choose." Number 10. I did not make my initial post for clout, attention, or 5 minutes of fame. If I wanted that, I could have called 9 News weeks ago. I could have documented the entire purchasing process on social media. And I could have told everyone I knew instead of just a few close people. I definitely would have made my post public, and I would not have deleted the post and completely deactivated my social media within 9 hours of making this post if I wanted fame. The people that screenshotted and shared it wanted the attention. We hope it was worth it. So that part is true. If Mrs. Miller really did want to be famous or draw attention to moving into Chris and Shanann Watts' home,
made a YouTube about it.
She would have been like, "Oh, here we are, and here's the TikToks, and here's the videos, and here's YouTube and all that," and she didn't. Okay, we're almost done with this rant, then we'll go into more of the details of the court proceedings today. Number 11, my realtor did not make a post that was also shared and spread around. I don't know why she said that, because the realtor did make a post. Maybe I misinterpreted this part, but she wrote, "She celebrates all her wins, and this was no different. She had no ill intentions, handled it beautifully, and asked our permission before posting it, and she is one of the best people I know. Stop berating her for her post." When people started asking if it was the Watts house, she addressed it and answered it honestly. True, I don't know why anyone would berate the realtor. Like, normal realtors.
She's just doing her job selling a house.
And it's like, oh, here's the new house sold. Here's the family. We hope they have many happy years here, or what have you. And so I guess people started criticizing the realtor for selling the house or posting a picture. And people noticed, oh, that really looks like Shanann's home. And she said, yes. For those who have asked, it is the Watts home. And they ended up deleting it because of all the backlash. Number 12, we're at the last of her rant here. Mrs. Miller wrote, "To the few of you choosing to continue driving around my house, taking pictures, even though it is now occupied by a family, we see you. Do you honestly sleep at night believing that you are honoring and respecting Shanann and her family by doing this? You look pathetic and obsessed. Please stop. If you already got this far, thanks for reading. Please respect my privacy for me, my family, and our home. Frederick Police Department has been on our side and is watching out for us day and night. If you step foot on my property with intentions to harm us or harass us, know that we know our rights. Show some respect." Lastly, a
Very
big,
wholesome
massive,
woman.
loving thank you to the many who have showed us so much love and support. Thank you to the friends and family who have come over already and created some amazing memories in this house. You have already helped fulfill our intention to put love back in here. Thank you to the neighbors for giving us the warmest welcome and letting us know how happy you are that we are here. This has meant everything to us. Thank you for not kicking us while we were down. I don't know what she meant by that part. Thank you for being you. We will never forget that. So, that was her big rant, I guess 2 years ago, and in those 2 years, something horrible has transpired, so that today, April 26, 2024, at 9:30 a.m., the length estimated for 10 minutes, Mr. Miller showed up in person for his pre-trial conference for case number C62202-4M445 in Weld County Division 9. So Mr. Miller appeared in the courtroom with his lawyer, Tim Lindstrom. Now, Tim Lindstrom apparently is usually on Zoom, so the judge was like, wait, who are you? And then she's like, oh, forgive me, it's a Friday. I guess she's not used to seeing him in the courtroom. Now, as far as the state, it was a Mr. Salome was the lawyer. Judge had the plea paperwork before her. The charge was regarding domestic violence, harassment as a Class 1 misdemeanor. It brought him an 18-month deferred sentence. Mr. Miller can attend, if he's not already attending, substance abuse evaluation and treatment supervised by the probation department. They talked about fines and costs, and there was no restitution to be made. Is that the party's understanding of the agreement? And the judge asked Mr. Miller specifically. He said, yes, Your Honor. And she goes through the same things where she's like, has anyone pressured you or made any promises to you? He said, no, ma'am, no one made any promises or pressured him to plead guilty today. Did he understand he's giving up his right to a jury trial? Yes, ma'am, he said. So just like Chris Watts, and I do not mean to equate this man with the horrors of what Chris Watts did to his family. I'm only giving you facts on all I can see is Domestic Violence Act. Here. Yes, ma'am, he knew he was giving up his rights to a jury trial, so neither one of them wanted a jury trial. They didn't want to drag their family even more in the public eye. Was he satisfied with his counsel from his attorney? Yes. Was he not under the influence of alcohol or drugs today? It's correct. He said, I am not. So he pled guilty to an act of domestic violence, meaning he can't own a gun. The judge explained if he weren't a U.S. citizen, it would affect his ability to stay in the country. So I'm assuming he's a U.S. citizen. Mr. Miller pled guilty, waived his factual basis, and the plea was accepted. The lawyer wanted the plea to be accepted, and it was accepted. They were moving to immediate sentencing. That's when the judge asked, are any victims present? And that's when Mrs. Miller chimed in, yes, Your Honor, she's on Zoom. And then she went on to ask, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but she wanted to modify the protection order. So obviously she has a protection order against her husband. She wanted Mr. Miller to be able to come back to our residence, she called it, that famous, infamous home on Saratoga Trail, only as long as she's not there. So she wanted to be able to allow Mr. Miller to go to that home only at the times when she's not there. She did say, we're in the process of selling our homes. To me, it sounded like homes. I wish I could give you the audio or video. It sounded like she said, we're in the process of selling our homes, plural, but maybe she just meant home. So she wants Mr. Miller to come back to their house until it sells. So there was no objection to Mr. Miller returning to the house so long as the victim is not there. The parties can have contact upon agreement between the parties. That was a suggestion by the lawyer, but the judge was not comfortable with something that broad. For example, you could hear Mr. Miller whispering with his lawyer in between. He wanted the lawyer to bring this up to say, look, you know, like special events, like children's birthday parties or celebrations, and there was something about wanting to meet in public, and they was like, okay, we're going to ask the court to accept the plea along with the change in the order of protection, but the judge was not comfortable, and I don't blame her.
So they gotta
she
be
wasn't
separating.
comfortable with just a broad language, changing this order of protection that Mr. Miller can have contact with Mrs. Miller, and I assume his children, upon whenever they agree. So the judge said something about leaving the order of protection like it was, okay, they can add a bullet point about Mr. Miller coming to the house when Mrs. Miller is not there, and I assume when the children aren't there too. But the judge wasn't willing to amend the order of protection so completely as to say, okay, whenever they both agree, then they can just see each other. He pled guilty to the charge of harassment as an act of domestic violence. Anything you want to say, Mr. Miller, before I impose sentence? The judge was asking, and he seemed a little caught off guard. He was like, what? He didn't hear her. And he said, no, I'm good, Your Honor. I thought that was a little funny when people kind of, I don't know, when they flow into that casual language with the judge. But he did know. He called her Your Honor. He seemed very respectful. So this is the part that perked me up. The judge said, okay, we can vacate the protection order regarding the child since that charge is being dismissed. Mr. Miller has no, I checked the docket,
Okay, so
Mr.
nothing
Miller
against
has
children.
no future court dates coming up in the next 6 months in Weld County that I could find. And is this protection order being vacated? Is this charge being dismissed along with the plea deal? Does the plea deal dismiss all the charges? Was it just a charge in relation to a child? The judge did say child, and was it only in relation to a child?
They have 3
That's
children.
what the Facebook rumors are saying. Mrs. Miller filed for divorce, is leaving Mr. Miller because of abuse allegedly.
Somebody reached out to me and showed me that there is a file for divorce, but again, we can't state rumors until it's factual. So if you are on Facebook and stating that, just kind of pull it away. We know that they're selling the home. It sounds like it was from the husband to the wife for the domestic abuse, but don't spread rumors until we know it's facts.
Towards the children or one of the children. That part I haven't confirmed, but what I have confirmed is what I'm reading you right now happened in court. Mr. Miller must complete treatment for domestic violence and alcohol and drug evaluation. He was assigned a $222.50 fee, including address confidentiality fee. I found that ironic. You know, one of the most famous addresses in the world that all of us have looked, and the only reason we know it is because of the Millers purchasing the home after the horrible crime of the century happened, and the realtor publishing the photos and people putting 2 and 2 together. And those who want to go do deep research, you know, it's public information. I'd be well within my right to put their names out there. And as this story comes to life, yeah, it probably will. They'll be put out there and people will wonder, because the main deal is not necessarily the Millers per se, it's the house. It's like this horrible crime happened, years passed, the Millers purchased it, and now there's more problems. The marriage broken up, the husband acting up, I'll say, pleading guilty to domestic violence. Is it like a child-hating spirit in that house, or a wife-hating spirit, or what the heck is going on? I had to know. And restitution was waived, so I guess he doesn't have to make restitution to his victims, whomever they are. Okay, so of course, in doing more research, I'm trying to find more info just so I can bring facts and not rumors. And I was trying to get the body cam videos, and we shall see, because my goodness, I got this response. Good morning, we've received your open records requests for the Millers. Frederick Police Department case report, and then they give the report. They told me this case report has been sent to the Weld County District Attorney's Office. Your request will need to be directed to Weld County. Thank you. They've sent the case report over to Weld County DA. And if it's the same DA who is in office, who I recently made a video regarding his TED Talk and his appearance on his wife's podcast, as you guys know, she literally struck my video. She struck another YouTuber's video with a fake copyright strike, claimed we were trying to defame him. Anyway, if it's the same DA, which I've never spoken badly about him, I've only praised him for his conviction of Chris Watts after Chris Watts confessed. If it's that same DA, we will see what happens there. You guys know my track record with Colorado, and only by the grace of God have I been able to get videos out of them. You guys saw how I fought for years and years and years to get Nicole Kessinger's August 16th, 2018 video, which everyone has now, which just should have been released with a simple public records request. It took me filing, and you'll see it in the court paperwork if you go that far, me filing an intent to sue that I sent to Colorado, the Frederick Police Department. I think the DA Agent Kevin Kovac, all these people, which I didn't even want to send, just to get them to release that video.
Wow.
Thank God they released it to Shanann Watts' brother, and then it went worldwide. And I don't understand why it had to take all that. That's why a part of me is so done with trying to get body cam footage, which should be ours as members of the public. As members of the public, we pay hefty state taxes. I still owe my state. I just sent them like $1,500. No, $1,000. I just sent my state like $1,000. I still owe them state taxes, but we're paying these taxes in order to pay for, of course, the officers who serve and protect, and those body cam videos and footage. And I hate having to fight so much to get it. So I'm not holding my breath like I prayed with Nicole Kessinger's video. I wanted it. People wanted it. We only had the audio of that huge 3-hour interview. Now that we've got the video, we see her hand movements, you know, the way she's like, Shanann, you know, all these things, and why, and her dad comforting her. That video, that was held for years until I threatened to sue Colorado just to turn over the darn video. My point is, I get tired, but I did pray and God brought it through. My prayer is, God, in Jesus' name, whatever you want the public to see, whatever you want put out there, let your will be done. And I feel like God's will was done because they ended up turning over that video. I thought I was gonna have to crowdsource like for 10 grand for a retainer for an attorney just to get, it's public record anyway. So I don't understand the game of I'm holding this info, I'm holding that info. They treat us like we're asking for something wrong when we're trying to get facts of a case, when we're trying to get the body cam footage, or when we're trying to report things correctly. People sometimes dog you out when they're like, oh, you YouTubers, you just go with all this rumor and wild speculation. And when you try and attempt to get facts, sometimes it's weird how they treat you. And this is all over the US. I've seen a lot of problems with attempting to get body cam footage, especially when it's a case when an officer has done something wrong. But they should look at it as a lot of times it proves the officer handled the situation correctly. So when Mr. Miller, whenever he was arrested, if that body cam is meant to be sent to me, we'll see what Colorado sends me. So stay tuned. I'm making no promises because I've seen how different places operate. So on that note, let's close with Hosea 6:3. So let us know and become personally acquainted with him. Let us press on to know and understand fully the greatness of the Lord, to honor, heed, and deeply cherish him. His appearing is prepared and is as certain as the dawn, and he will come to us in salvation like the heavy rain, like the spring rain watering the earth. So I just had to jump on here. I was like, I cannot wait to tell you guys when I could not believe Mr. Miller went through this. And so now whoever purchases that home, maybe it should be a developer who just purchases it. I think if it's a Vrbo or Airbnb, it would be booked all the time because true crime tourism is a thing. It's, some people might dog others out for being curious about the place where a crime happened, but I think it's human nature. I mean, all those tours, well before TMZ was a thing, even back in the day, they had those Hollywood tours like, oh, go here, this is where Marilyn Monroe died. And you know, they have all the buses going around.
She's not wrong.
Same thing. It's just different now. It's honed in. I don't begrudge the people who are in Colorado and they say, I want to drive by the Watts house. Now, if a person gets really intrusive and they're all in the yard and they're
looking in the windows or
taking pictures of the occupants and all that, yeah, maybe that's too far. Harassing the neighbors, yeah, that's too far.
Leave them alone.
Or driving by in the middle of the night and shining lights or something. I'm not saying anyone's done that, but if they have, yeah, that's too far. I guess unfortunately, with a case as popular as the Watts case, it went worldwide. People are fascinated. They want to know why he did it. They're just searching for information.
And answers.
Whomever purchases that home, moves into that home, Verbos that home, Airbnbs that home, whatever happens with that home, as long as it's a home, they can expect, okay, this is a house that will get attention. It's kind of like if you purchase a home near a school, and like this one homeowner near here, when my kids were young, there was an area near the school where you can pick up the kids. Well, this one homeowner had this beautiful corner home, and this little boy was standing on his lawn because there were no sidewalks as opposed to standing in the street, and he was waiting obviously for his ride to pick him up from school, and the homeowner had the nerve to tell the little kid, oh, get off my lawn. And I'm thinking to myself, if I purchased a home right next to a school,
You know
I could
kids are gonna be in
expect
it.
some kids standing in my lawn. And I wouldn't yell at them to get out of my
Get
lawn
over
and get
it.
in the street where it's more dangerous where cars are. Some people are just weird like that,
She's
but
right.
I'm saying that to say my expectation would be, if I purchase a home on a busy street, I would expect cars to go by. If I purchased a home that was the scene of a crime, I would expect, okay, there's
Amityville
going to be
Horror
some
House.
looky-loos driving by. Consider that before you purchase it. So maybe the next person who buys this home, and I do believe it will sell, hopefully a great family can get it.
I don't think it's gonna
hope
sell
that
for
person
7.5.
prays, and knows how to do some deliverance, knows the name of Jesus to cast out some demons or whatever, and
Amen.
is protected and safe, because I don't know what's happening in that home. You know, I wouldn't do it flippantly. I'm not saying the Millers did it flippantly, and I'm sure they didn't want to go through this.
No.
But when people get a hold of this story, I wonder how they're going to handle it, or spin it, or present
gonna
it,
reach
or
the toy-
if I get more information
tabloids.
from the court, from the DA, from whomever, I will present it. We'll go from there, but isn't that a trip to me? It's such a trip. Some people might think it's not, but I think it is. The fact that where these horrible crimes happen, it was built by Shanann and Chris, this home, so they were the first ones living there. Chris committed these horrible crimes. He's off in prison where he needs to be.
Thank
Unfortunately, his family is gone. Years later, the Millers move in. 17 months later, they're moving out, allegedly getting divorced, and Mr. Miller's pleading guilty to domestic violence and harassment. What are the odds? What are the chances? Things can happen like that, of course, a lot, but what are the odds that the people who moved into that house of
Would have
horrors
this-
are going through
not
this
similarities,
today?
but-
And the next person who purchases the home, and if someone lives there, even if they do turn it into an Airbnb or Verbo, I don't know if I'd ever want to visit, because I feel like,
Unfortunately, there are some
something
people
could
that
still
do.
happen again. Is something else going to happen with this home? I know a lot of people believe it should have been torn down and made into a memorial park for Shanann and the girls and Nico, and maybe those people are, I know I said it's impractical financially, but maybe those people are up to something. But in a residential neighborhood, could you truly have turned it into a memorial park? Maybe that would have been healing, but you would have been right there with the neighbors right there, and they wouldn't have gotten much privacy unless you had privacy fences or something around it. Maybe there's something that can be done. I don't know. But we'll keep track, of course, of this case and many others as we dig and cover true crime. Thank you so much for always watching.
Definitely loved her video. Again, she definitely knows her stuff. Definitely knows how to find the information. So with that being said, comment your thoughts down below. Again, I don't think it should be sold. I think it should be demolished, turned into somewhat of a flat land with a memorial stone, and just left as is. I mean, we're always gonna have this. A family's gonna move in. They're gonna be unfortunately harassed. They're gonna be some comparison. I mean, if it's a single guy, they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, there's a guy in there. Could be like Nick, or he could be like Chris Watts." I'm like, they're just gonna continuously do this over and over and over with whoever moves into this house. I don't think it's gonna sell at 7.5. I think it's just too high, even in the marketing that it is right now. But again, you can't speculate that because the Amityville Horror House, I mean, I'm not comparing again, but that house sold for 1.4 million. What was it? A few years back. So, again, comment your guys' thoughts down below. Please be respectful. Please do not be posting any of the Millers' names and so forth. I want to keep it separated and so forth. The only reason why we're talking about the Miller's home is it's because it's the Watts home as well. Because it's, let's face it, it's always going to be called the Watts house, the Watts home, because of the unfortunate events that took place there. Again, I keep saying this over and over. Thank you for watching. Please be safe. Please take care, and always remember to keep on nerding on. And we'll see you guys next time.